In this video, we will solve question number 7 from exercise 9.3, which is from the chapter of circles. Reading the question, it may at first appear to be quite complicated, but the solution is actually quite simple. Okay, the question reads as follows. So, if the diagonals of a cyclic quadrilateral are diameters of the circle through the vertices of the quadrilateral, prove that it is a rectangle. Okay, so this is the wording of the question, and when we read this, the students might find that this seems like a complicated problem. But when you have such problems, the first thing you should do is to make the diagram, and once you make the diagram, you will have a clear visualization as to what this problem exactly is asking you to do. Okay, so we are given that there is a cyclic quadrilateral. Cyclic quadrilateral means a quadrilateral where the four vertices of the quadrilateral lie on a circle. So we have the quadrilateral ABCD shown in red here. All the four vertices, the vertex A, vertex B, vertex C, and vertex D, they are all lying on the circle. So that's why it is a cyclic quadrilateral. And we are also given that the diagonals of this quadrilateral are diameters of the circle. So we have the diagonal AC of the quadrilateral and the diagonal BD of the quadrilateral, and these are given to be the diameters of the circle. That means the AC is passing through the center of the circle. Diameter is the line which passes through the center of the circle, right? So we have AC as the diagonal of the quadrilateral and also as the diameter of the circle. Similarly, BD is a diagonal of the quadrilateral and also a diameter of the circle. Okay, so this is what we have now. And we have to prove that in this scenario, the quadrilateral ABCD is a rectangle. This is what we are asked to prove. Now, what are the conditions for a quadrilateral to be a rectangle? First of all, for a quadrilateral to be a rectangle, we should have that it should be a parallelogram. That means opposite sides should be parallel to each other. And because in a rectangle, the opposite sides are parallel to each other. And furthermore, for that parallelogram to be a rectangle, we need to show that one of the angles in that parallelogram is 90 degrees, which will mean that all the other angles are also 90 degrees. So a quadrilateral is a rectangle when we show that it is a parallelogram wherein all the angles of the parallelogram are 90 degrees. So basically we have to show that the quadrilateral ABCD is a parallelogram, and then we also have to show that that parallelogram has all the angles equal to 90 degrees. That means the angle A, angle B, angle C, and angle D, all of them should be 90 degrees. And we also have to show that ABCD is a parallelogram as well. And to do that, it is very simple. One of the properties of a parallelogram is that the opposite angles of a parallelogram are equal. And converse to that theorem is that if the opposite angles in a quadrilateral are equal, then we can say that it is a parallelogram. All right. So we will try to find out what are the angles A, B, C, D, and see what do we get for them. And first of all, we will establish that the opposite angles are equal. For example, angle D and angle B are equal, and similarly we can show that angle A and angle C are equal. So if we have the opposite angles as equal angles, then this quadrilateral ABCD would be a parallelogram. And if those equal angles also happen to be 90 degrees, then that parallelogram will also be a rectangle. Okay, so the solution is we first look at the diagonal AC, which is also a diameter of the circle. So that's our diagonal AC over here. So since it's also a diameter of the circle, that means the diameter divides the circle into two semicircles. And we know from a theorem that the angle subtended by the semicircle at any point on the circle is a right angle. So therefore, we will have angle ADC, which is the angle subtended by this semicircle here, as 90 degrees. Similarly, the angle ABC, which is this angle over here, that is the angle subtended by this semicircle on the other side of the circle. So both the angles ADC and the angle ABC are equal to 90 degrees because they are both angles in a semicircle. And we have seen a theorem earlier which states that the angle in a semicircle is a right angle. That is, the angle in a semicircle is 90 degrees. So we now have the angle ADC is 90 degrees. So we have obtained that this is 90 degrees because ADC is the angle subtended by the semicircle. Similarly, the angle ABC is this angle here, and that is also equal to 90 degrees. So we have first shown that angle ABC and angle ADC are both 90 degrees. Next, we can look at the problem in a similar fashion by considering the other diagonal, which is the diagonal BD, which also is given to be the diameter of the circle. So we will look at the second diameter, which is BD, and then we can obtain the angles for angle A and angle C, that is the angle BAD and the angle BCD. In a similar way, just as we have done for angle ABC and angle ADC. Okay. So now with the BD as the diameter of the circle, we have angle BAD, which is this angle over here. BAD, this angle here, is the angle subtended by the semicircle, which is this arc here. And similarly, angle BCD, which is this angle over here, that is also an angle subtended by this semicircle. And we know from our theorem that the angle subtended in a semicircle is 90 degrees. So therefore, angle BAD and angle BCD are both equal to 90 degrees because they are both angles in a semicircle. So as before, they are angles in a semicircle is 90 degrees. Okay, so now we have shown that the angle BAD, this is also a right angle, and the angle BCD, this is also a right angle. So now we have shown that all the four angles of this quadrilateral are equal to 90 degrees. And we also notice that the opposite angles are equal. So for example, angle BAD is equal to angle BCD, which is 90 degrees. And similarly, the angle ADC, which is here, and the angle ABC, which is here, these are also opposite angles and they are also equal. So we have now that the opposite angles are equal as well as 90 degrees. So therefore, we can now state that the opposite angles are equal, and also each of the four angles in this quadrilateral is 90 degrees. So angle ABC and ADC are opposite angles. So angle ABC and angle ADC are opposite angles. Similarly, angle BAD and angle BCD are opposite angles. Okay, and since the opposite angles are equal, since opposite angles are equal, we know from the property of parallelograms that if the opposite angles are equal, then the quadrilateral is a parallelogram. So since we now have shown that the opposite angles are equal, we can now write that ABCD is a parallelogram. Okay, and we have also shown that each of the four angles of the parallelogram ABCD is equal to 90 degrees. And now also we have all the four angles of the parallelogram to be equal to 90 degrees as we have shown here. So angle ABC, which is this angle, and the angle ADC, which is the opposite angle here, they are both 90 degrees, and similarly angle BAD and BCD are also 90 degrees. So first we have shown that the opposite angles are equal, and therefore we concluded that ABCD is a parallelogram. And now in that parallelogram ABCD, we have all the four angles to be equal to 90 degrees. So therefore we can now state that ABCD is a rectangle. Okay. Okay, so when we read the question initially, it looked very complicated and very confusing, but once we make the diagram, it becomes much simpler. Okay, so we had proved that the angle A and angle C are both 90 degrees and also equal to each other. Similarly, the angle D and angle B are also equal to 90 degrees and also equal to each other. So we have shown that the opposite angles are equal, and therefore we said ABCD is a parallelogram based on the theorem, which states that if the opposite angles of a quadrilateral are equal, then that quadrilateral is a parallelogram. And then in the parallelogram, if the angles are 90 degrees, then that parallelogram is a rectangle. Okay, so we have shown now that the cyclic quadrilateral ABCD, which has its diagonals as the diameters of the circle, is indeed a rectangle. Okay, and since it's a cyclic quadrilateral, it should also have satisfied the property that the sum of the opposite angles should be 180 degrees, and clearly each of the angles is 90 degrees, so the sum of the opposite angles is 90 plus 90 is 180. Similarly for this side, it's 90 plus 90 is also 180. Okay, so the cyclic quadrilateral ABCD is a rectangle, and it also satisfies the property of being cyclic. Okay, so when we have these kind of problems which are given in a verbal format, the first step is to make the diagrammatic representation for the given statements. And okay, once we have a diagrammatic representation for it, the problem will actually look much simpler. Okay, sometimes the diagram is not given in the question, we have to construct the diagram. So based on the given information, you need to construct the diagram appropriately. And once you have constructed the diagram, it will be easier to visualize how to approach the problem and solve it. As we have seen in this case, it is fairly straightforward because we get these two diagonals to be the diameters, and we have used the property that the angle subtended by the semicircle is 90 degrees, and in a straightforward way we got the proof that we had to show. Okay, we showed that ABCD is indeed a rectangle, which is what we have shown here.